Okay, so next up is availability. If you want research, it's got to be available. And here's the problem. Um, when you go looking for research, you might find the title of a really good essay, but then you can't get to the essay on the internet. Now, one trick that I'll give you for dealing with this is if you log in to your BMCC library account, when you do a Google, you'll be able to find more stuff once you're logged in. Because here's the thing, a lot of times you may find a good essay worth quoting on the internet, but you can't get to it. And they'll want you to pay like $500 or something for it. That's crazy. Who the fuck would pay $500 for that? It's not meant for human beings to buy. It's meant for schools to buy. BMCC uses your tuition money to buy shit like that so you can quote it in your papers. So if you're logged into the library, you're going to find more things. Um, but you know, so the point is you gotta quote things that you can actually get to. Which may so you may hit dead ends. You may go looking for something and the link doesn't work, or you may go click on something and they want money, or you click on something they won't show it to you. You got to look around until you find something you can actually read. And logging into BMCC will help with that. Okay. If you're looking at websites, it's worth knowing a couple of things. So you guys know some websites end in .com. Com means commercial. It's for selling things. Now, it's not like anybody selling thing is bad. Like NewYorkTimes.com, there's trustworthy newspapers and magazines and things. Like so, the New Yorker, NewYorker.com. The Atlantic, Atlantic.com. Um, the New York Times, NewYorkTimes.com. Washington Post, WashingtonPost.com. And they have advertisements, and they're pretty good. But better is if you can find something that doesn't have advertisements. So because .com means trying to make money. .org means not trying to make money. So that's better. Now, there's still junk that ends with .org, but .orgs are not trying to sell you things. That's good. The best, though, is a .edu, bmcc.cuny.edu. That means an educational institution. That's more trustworthy because it's coming from a school. Now, it doesn't mean you can never quote a .com. You can quote the NewYorkTimes.com, but people.com is not worth quoting because it's too much advertisement. And they're trying to sell you too much shit, and so you can't trust them as much. Okay, cool. Um, and there are other .coms. For example, books.google.com is just a website where they take books, old books, a lot of the times, and they stick them online. Those books are often worth quoting. Now, the .com doesn't matter because the book was made 100 years ago before they even had a .com. And so how do you know if the book's trustworthy? You check the name of the author, see if they're an expert. You check the publisher, make sure they know what they're doing. Um, okay, and with websites, look at the advertisements. If you go to a website and there's an advertisement for porn, don't quote that. Um, right? You gotta see what they're advertising too, and if there's too much advertising, you can't. It's not trustworthy. Okay, so we're doing pretty good. Oh, there's also a thing you won't need this, but .ac.uk is the British version of .edu. So all right, whatever. Looking pretty good. And anytime you go to a website, there's usually somewhere on the website is like a button about us where you can read a little bit about who made the website and why. That's a great place to go looking for information about whether a website is trustworthy. Although again, the key thing is see the name of the person that wrote the thing you want to quote. If there's no name, you can't check if it's trustworthy, and so it's not trustworthy. But Google search the name, but also find out about the website. Who built it and why. See what you can find out about the author of the website and the creator of the website and that kind of stuff. Okay, it's looking pretty good. All right, so cool. I'm gonna go over some examples now about how to do this. So for starters, remember, you want research that's relevant to your interests. Now, sometimes my students will be like, they'll try to, let's say they're writing a paper on Doctor Strange and the Tempest. They'll write Doctor Strange plus Tempest search. Don't do that. That's too specific. That's because you're probably the only person in the world who's writing a paper on Doctor Strange and the Tempest. It's not a normal thing to do, so you can't look that up. But if you look up Shakespeare or Marvel, you know what it is? You notice if you want to read something, if it's too close, you can't read it, but if it's too far away, you can't read it. It's the same thing here. If you write The Tempest plus Doctor Strange, that's too close. You can't read it. But if you write Shakespeare, that's too much. So what you got to look up is information about what did Shakespeare think about wizards. That'll give you something to talk about. Or what did people in 1600 think about wizards? Or illusionist might be something worth looking up. Illusionists, famous illusionists in history. That would that would give you some historical shit about people who did illusion stuff. That'd be a neat thing to look up. So that's really how you're doing your searches. All right, looking good, cool. You remember ideas, right? There's summary, metaphor, irony, ideas, and sound. With ideas, try looking up the story plus the idea. And remember, your research can just be about one of your stories, and then you connect it to the other one. So this is a key thing. Find out a little bit about what people thought about wizards in 1600, and then you connect it to Doctor Strange. See what a movie reviewer said about Doctor Strange, and then you connect it to the Shakespeare play, right? That way you have something to do, but you don't need a quote about both stories, right? You just need some information about the ideas in the story. If you're writing about Iago, you could go do psychology shit and find out about the depth, what do psychologists say about evil? What do psychologists say about serial killers? What do psychologists say about psychopaths? What do psychologists say about sociopaths? And you see what they said, and then you connect it to Iago, right? So stuff like that, looking good. All right, cool. So I think we're doing pretty good. All right, so let's go to some actual examples. Let's see what we got. Okay, I'm waiting for this to load. It's having a little trouble loading. And it's up. All right, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some examples so we can see what's kind of worth quoting. All right, so let's start here. Evaluate the following. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, so here's a quote. No wonder then that for Kafka, bureaucracy was, quote, closer to original human nature than any other social institution, unquote. What is this, quote, original human nature, unquote, if not the fact that man is, from the very beginning, a, quote, being of language, unquote, parle terre? And what is superego, the functioning mode of bureaucratic knowledge, if not the purest, most radical embodiment of the signifier as the cause of the subject's division of the signifier's injunction on its traumatic, senseless aspect? From Slavoj Žižek's For They Know Not What They Do. Now, are you going to quote that in your paper? It's about Kafka. That looks pretty good. The question becomes, are you going to quote that? Normally at this point I would quiz you and talk to you about it, but you're not here, so I'm by myself. So I'm just going to reveal that the answer is no, you are not going to fucking quote that. Why? It's too fucking hard. What the hell is he talking about? The purest, most radical embodiment of the signifier is the cause of the subject's division of the signifier's injunction on its traumatic, senseless aspect? What the fuck does that mean? You're not going to quote that because it's too difficult. Don't quote shit you don't understand. Students love to do that. They just grab a quote, they have no idea what they're quoting, and they just stick it in the paper. Don't do that. You got to because to quote something, you got to put it in your own words and explain it and connect it. That's too hard to understand. Remember I told you I had to get something not too easy, not too hard? That shit that I just quoted is too fucking hard. You can't use that. And you would need to have a PhD. You would need to have upper level knowledge of psychoanalysis, French psychoanalysis. By the way, you can see where you're in trouble. You see how he has this in quotation marks, but he doesn't say where it comes from? It's because you're supposed to know already. Who knows? Only advanced psychoanalysts would even know what the fuck that's from. So that's not going to work. Okay. Let's do another one. This is cheathouse.com. Now, what cheathouse.com wants you to do is they want you to pay them money to buy an essay, and then you turn the essay and you put your name at the top and you turn it into me. Now, and I catch you for plagiarizing, and then you fail. So now that's obviously a bad thing to do. Don't do that. But one time I had a student that went here and quoted this. So with plagiarism, someone's trying to trick me into thinking the words are theirs. But this student was just like, according to cheathouse.com, and then they put quotation marks and everything. So I didn't fail them because they weren't cheating, but because they weren't trying to trick me. They said exactly where they got it from. Plagiarists don't say where they got it from. They claim they thought it up, but they stole it. But here you can see, if you look at this, essay details, high school, 11th grade. Also, there's no author, right? So you can't quote something that's high school level, that's too young. But also, there's not an author here. Of course there's not an author. You're supposed to put your name and pretend you're the author. So you can't quote this because it's not written by an expert. Okay, we're doing pretty good. See you in the next video.